Thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to be doing a standardized demo of the TruckLogics TMS platform from the perspective of a fleet administrator. We're going to be going through an overview of the system and its features and functions, and then we'll wrap up at the end with a 10-minute Q&A session. I'm going to go ahead and initiate the screen share and go through the system. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop me wherever I am so we can answer any questions that you have. The more refined the question is about your particular feature or your particular business functions, the better. If you guys operate in a unique way and want to know how to utilize that function within our system, please feel free to ask me and I'll explain to you how to do that. Every day when you log into your TruckLogics account, you're going to be presented with your dashboard. Your dashboard is where you're going to go to see your current action items for the day. Included on these widgets are your active loads and your active dispatches on the left-hand side. Your active loads are loads that are currently in transit, and your dispatches are the associated information about how your freight is moving. An active load will always have an active dispatch associated with it, and vice versa. The difference in our system versus other systems is we separate all of your information into two different modules, loads and dispatches. Think of your load as the information about your freight, who's paying you, your invoice, and your BOL. The information about the freight itself is also in the load. The dispatch is the information about how that freight then moves, which driver, which truck, what their current status is, and any expenses or other additional paperwork that is collected throughout the actual dispatch process. The top right-hand corner is your open invoices. That's self-explanatory. These are invoices that are currently outstanding. And then in the bottom right, this is the upcoming maintenance widget. Maintenance in TruckLogics can be scheduled by time or by odometer reading or both. As you enter information into the system, like your odometer readings, and as the system counts down the days towards your next scheduled maintenance item, when it gets close enough, it will appear on your upcoming maintenance list. Scrolling on down, also on your dashboard, is our Dat Integration widget. This widget allows you to quickly search based upon the last location of the trucks. The truck's last location is most commonly input into the system via the check calls added by the drivers from their mobile app. You can use the last updated check call from the driver to find a load along their current route. Like my truck here, T002, they updated a check call in the dispatch going from Lawrenceville, Georgia back to Rockville, South Carolina. If I wanted to look for a load along that route, I would just simply click this View Matching Loads button to do a quick search of the DAT Power Load Board. Down here at the bottom, this is your dispatch schedule. This is a week forward view of your fleet's current availability. It's pretty self-explanatory. Anything that is available are trucks that you currently have not on the road that are waiting to be moving. LTL is anything you currently have, any trucks that you currently have on an LTL shipment. FTL, same thing, any trucks you currently have on an FTL. On delivery will actually increment only if you have a delivery on that said date. And then unavailable are any trucks that you have that are down for maintenance but are still part of your fleet. At the top of your screen, the bright orange bar running from left to right is your menu bar. Those contain your TruckLogics modules. So when you call the support and I ask you to click on, say, the loads module, you're very simply going to just hover your mouse over the load button and click it to step into that module. From left to right, you've seen your dashboard already. Loads is the information about your freight. Dispatch is about the how that freight is then moving. Accounts has a sub-menu. We give you a full customizable chart of accounts for all your income and expense accounts. You can do things like disable default accounts, enable new accounts, or customize any of the information that you have on the chart of accounts to modify the system defaults to better cater to your operation. Income transactions and expense transactions are going to give you breakdowns of your current income and expense transactions list. I'll show you these quickly. The income transactions list is pretty basic. It lets you pull out information in Microsoft Excel format or filter by a particular income category for a particular date range if you're looking for something specific. Expenses is a little bit more detailed because the expenses incurred by a carrier are usually much more complicated than the income that you receive. You can do things on the expense transaction screens like filter based upon a particular truck or driver or expense category. You can upload information directly into the system. We also have a new feature, which is our Efs Integration that allows you to import your fuel card transactions directly by simply connecting the two accounts together. And then you can always export this to Excel. You can add expenses in a couple of different ways. Our system adds expenses in 2 lanes primarily, everything that is fuel and then everything that is not fuel. All fuel goes in the fuel up expenses and everything else goes in the other expenses. If you have a regular recurring payment, things like trailer rent, insurance, or other costs that you incur on a monthly or weekly basis that are static, meaning they don't change, and you know when they're going to occur, you can set them up as recurring expenses to trigger based upon date and time. That just helps you automate yourself out of the job so you don't actually have to go into your system and type in things like your $1,500 insurance payment once a week. You can receive payment for any outstanding invoices that you currently have. Invoices, like I mentioned, are typically part of the loads, but there is a dedicated invoices module that you can go to. That's going to allow you to create standalone invoices by using this add invoice button. You can also group invoices together based upon your customer, broker, or factoring company information. The driver settlements module is analogous to the way that this functions in a way that is analogous to the way the industry already does settlements, in that each one of the dispatches that you create in TruckLogics will have a trip level settlement. You're going to use those trip level settlements to create a weekly payment report for each driver. Doesn't matter if they're an employee or a contractor, the system treats the information the same way, but outputs a report slightly differently based upon whether they're a contractor or an employee. You're going to want to provide your drivers with their weekly payment reports along with their pay stub once a week or once every other week, depending on how you actually issue payroll. The TruckLogics address book is a repository of everybody that you work with, customers, drivers, all the way down through generalized contacts. If you have a fleet account, you can add additional users by clicking on the driver or the staff member section and adding them in there. Anybody who drives a truck goes in the driver section. Anybody who drives a desk goes in the staff section. We have 4 different types of users you can add into the system: drivers, 2 different types of dispatchers, and an office manager. The document section is a secure cloud repository where you can keep track of all of the documents that you currently have. Anything that our system generates will be included in this TruckLogics documents folder. This will include anything that is uploaded via the mobile app to a dispatch or directly into a custom folder. You can create a private document and store it in the My Documents section. That's only visible based upon the user that's currently accessing the system. So if I'm an administrator and I have a document like a copy of my business license and I don't want anybody else to see that, I would put that in My Documents folder. In addition, we recently expanded the functionality of the Documents section to allow you to create custom folders. Custom folders can be renamed, they can be deleted. You can also add documents into them. Once the documents have been added into your custom folders, you can share them with particular users in your account. This ensures that anybody that you want to have access to a particular document only has access to that one document. You use this share button right here and select the user from the list that you would like to share this document with. They can then see the folder and the document, but nothing else. So if there were 100 documents in here and I only shared them one, they would not even see the other 99. Truck Zone is where you're going to keep track of all of your equipment, maintenance, and your driver's preferences. The Truck Zone includes the way to activate and deactivate your trucks. So your subscription type is going to dictate how many trucks you can currently have active within the account. Our system functions a little bit differently from others in that we do not limit you by the amount of trucks that you add, only the amount of trucks that are currently active. What I mean by that is you can add 1,000 trucks to an owner-operator account. You can only have 2 of them active at any given moment. An active truck, you can schedule maintenance for, you can incur expenses on it, you can assign them to dispatches, and so on and so forth. Basically, using them within the system requires them to be active. If they are not active, you cannot use them. Another thing that we do to prevent you from creating any holes in your data stream, if you work with a contractor and the contractor is no longer with you, you'll have to deactivate their truck. You will not be able to delete it. The logic there is if you incurred or paid a maintenance expense on behalf of this contractor, you're going to need to retain that receipt for future use if you're audited. And if you were able to delete the truck, you would have a receipt, but no unit number to associate it with. So what you'll do is if you do need to activate or deactivate a truck, you'll edit the entry. Trailer information is also stored here, but none of the trailer information counts towards your cap for active trucks. You can add an unlimited number of trailers and keep them all active. The maintenance module, this separates us from the pack. in that our maintenance module has two different ways to record information. You can set your maintenance forward by scheduling it, again, based upon odometer reading or time. And as you get closer to it, the system will prompt you. And then when it's time to mark the maintenance item as completed, you simply click the Mark Complete button or Complete Maintenance button on the action column to enter the information for this service when it occurred. The benefits here is we require things that your auditor is going to want to see if you're under an IRP audit. Things like the odometer reading, at which the maintenance was performed, where it was performed, by which vendor, who paid for it, how they paid for it, and then we also make you itemize your work order or your invoice into labor, parts, miscellaneous, or others. In addition, there's a space here to upload a copy of the original work order or the original invoice. Make sure you always save that information for future reference. Driver preferences are just if you have a contractor and he always drives the red Kenworth, you can set that up so that you save yourself a couple clicks. The TruckLogics IFTA module is powered by Express IFTA. That is our sister product. The technology produces a file-ready IFTA report. As long as you've been using the system as intended and entering all of your miles via your trip sheets and entering all of your fuel expenses in your expense transactions or in your dispatches themselves, the system will carry that information forward and output it directly on your state forms. With our system, filing IFTA is a review process, not a data entry process. If you have a Keep Truck and ELD, this is where the integration starts. You can use your Keep Truck and ELDs to import your actual mileage or your fuel expenses, whatever you have recorded on the ELD in those two modules, the fuel expenses and the mileage data from there, if the module can be directly imported into TruckLogics. So you can save yourself even more time if you have a Keep Truck and ELD. You simply click this Import from Keep Truck and button, associate your existing units in TruckLogics to your units in your Keep Trucking account, and then import the information on the next screen, which is the trip detail screen. Reports are our business insight tools. These are pretty powerful tools that you can run on demand. You don't have to request a report or wait for it to appear. You can run a profit and loss report to get an idea of your profit per mile or cost per mile. This can be run as narrowly as how profitable was a single truck on a single day, or as broadly as how profitable the entire fleet was over an entire year. The year-end tax report is beneficial for your accountant or your CPA, whoever files your taxes, or if you do it yourself, you're going to want to output this once a year to get an idea of what you need to fill in on your Schedule C. Revenue by customer, this is going to give you a snapshot of your current top earners, customers, and brokers. Driver payment report is beneficial for filing 1099s because it gives you the three pieces of information you need, your gross, your deductions, and your net. The equipment maintenance report is another one that I like to plug. That one I affectionately dubbed the Make the Auditor Go Away report. When you get your first IRP audit and they ask for your maintenance records, all of the information that appears on this equipment maintenance report is what your auditor is going to be asking you for. When the maintenance was performed, what the odometer reading was, where it was performed, and what specific maintenance item was performed, and how much it cost you. Down here at the bottom, these IFTA reports, these are only included if you have a preferred or premium level account, but what they'll do is they'll give you a good idea of key information that you're going to need for IFTA reporting purposes. Things like the fuel tax summary report will give you an idea of what your current estimated tax payment or tax credit might be for the current quarter. Fuel report is just a breakdown of the fuel purchased by a particular truck. The driver log in TruckLogics, I don't recommend using this unless you have are exempt from the ELD mandate. If you are exempt from the ELD mandate, you drive locally, or you're a municipality and you only operate dump trucks or something like that, you can use this, but a lot of times it's going to be just dual entry because this is not certified by the FMCSA. If you do need a certified FMCSA log, we recommend using Keep Trucking. And then last but not least is our Loadboard Page. Our Loadboard Page is our dedicated page for DAT searching. You can connect your DAT Power account here and search by equipment type for a particular region or a particular origin. You can view information on the load that was posted. You can correspond directly with whoever posted the load if they supply their email address, and then you can save those loads for later or directly import them into TruckLogics. If you have a truck that's just sitting, we also are integrated with the Post to Truck feature. You simply take the truck that you have on your TruckLogics account and post it live to the DAT Power load board so your customers or brokers can find you. And at this point, I'd stop and ask any questions, and then I go into how to build a load and how to create a dispatch. Okay. So we're going to drop into the loads module real quick and very quickly create a load and then dispatch it. Typically, this is where you're going to be working most often than not if you're not a driver in the TruckLogics account. After you log in, if you have a signed or agreed upon rate confirmation, you're going to click the loads module, get a look at what you currently have outstanding or what currently is active. You can customize this view using the Customize Columns button. Otherwise, simply click New Load and select whether it is a full truckload or a less than truckload. A less than truckload is multiple customer loads on the same truck at the same time. Think flatbeds, Amazon haulers, anybody who has a need to separate invoices, BOLs, and check call notifications by customer when they're on the same truck at the same time. Very typically, your long haul guys and your OTR freight haulers are going to use this EFTL, which is a full truckload. Think 53-foot dry van loaded front and back. I'm going to use that for my example. Now, to build a load in TruckLogics, our philosophy is write once, use many. As long as your address book contains everybody that you're working with, you can go ahead and simply start typing the information into the system and then select it from the list. What I mean by that is I have a customer here. I'm going to start typing the first few letters of their name. They appear on screen. I select them, and the system fills in the rest of the information for me, including adding them as my shipper. All I need to do here is select the pickup location where I'm actually physically picking this up from, and then enter the date and time. I'm already halfway done with entering in my load information. If you did receive this information or this rate confirmation from a broker, you select broker. If this is a haul from a manufacturer or a haul where you're not being paid, you're going to want to use yard move / inventory transfer. If you pick up freight from a drayage company and bring it back to your yard, or you haul freight from a manufacturer directly and you're not being paid for a particular leg, you're going to want to set that up as a yard move or inventory transfer so the system lets you produce this with 0 income values at the bottom. Always enter in your customer's load number as your own load number. If you're using our automation, you can also enter that as the reference number. So I'm going to enter my customer load number here. This way, when my system produces the invoice and my rate confirmation and any other load or dispatch documentation, the reference information is filled in so everybody can identify it. Now I need to select my consignee. This is where I'm dropping off. Start typing in a few letters and go ahead and select them from the list. This client does not have multiple physical locations, so their drop-off location filled in automatically. No other required information on the consignee side or the shipper side is needed at this point, but I do recommend adding it in if you do have it. Things like delivery and pickup instructions that are vital for the driver to get loaded or unloaded on time need to be entered in here. Like, for example, the pickup location requires a pallet jack. You'll put in here, bring pallet jack. This information will be relayed to the driver via the mobile app when he accepts the load. When you're done, you're going to hit save. If you have a multi-leg shipment and you have multiple drop-off points or multiple pickup points, you hit save and add another. But don't worry, even if you hit save and move on, you can always come back and click add additional shipper. Freight details. This is where you're going to enter in the information about what is being hauled. In order to use the TruckLogics BOL that our system generates, you need to enter something into the freight description. You need to enter at least some value into the weight field, put in 35,000 pounds, and at least one quantity of one particular item type, like units or pieces or pallets. Once those 3 pieces of information have been filled in, the rest of the information is optional. The actual entire row is optional. But if you're using our system-generated BOL and would like to collect electronic signatures on it, please fill in this information. You can add additional lines until all the freight is accounted for. Next is your trailer information or your additional details information. If you're power only and you're going to leave the trailer wherever you deliver, you select drop trailer. That grays out the selection. Or if you know the trailer type and group, select it now. Things like van, 53-foot dry van. Those are the most common ones. If you do have like a hazmat or a reefer or a tanker indication, you simply check the box to add that indication to your load paperwork. Down here is the most important part. This is how you're being paid. Who you select up here in your customer, carrier, or broker section is who is paying you. This should never be you. It should never be anybody other than who actually is cutting the check, with the exception of your factoring company. Down here, I do have a couple of default options. My default option is a flat fee, but if you do get paid per mile, per ton, per hundredweight, or even if you'd like to switch an existing load to a truck order not used, you can go ahead and select that here and then enter the information. I'll leave this as a flat fee. I'll type in $1,500. You'll notice that my per mile calculation has not actually produced a dollar amount yet. What it's waiting for is it's waiting for me to calculate my route miles using Google Maps, Pro Miles, or manual calculation. Think of these more or less as akin to permit miles, the miles that you have been allotted, or simply the distance between your pickup and your drop-off location, not your start location and a deadhead or bobtail that occurs after the load. So what I'll do is I've got two different ways to do it automatically. If I use Google Maps, it will give me a calculation, but use this with caution. That's for cars, not for trucks. Pro Miles is our integration with truck routing software. It's a route calculation tool that will give you the same route, which is the distance between your pickup and your drop-off location, using only established truck routes. So the mileage amount will vary. If you know what the mileage amount is, you simply switch it to manual and type in the value. Once the system has a value, your per mile calculations will appear correctly. So 16 cents for my fuel surcharge, which I'm billing back to my customer to offset my fuel costs, at 1,033 miles equals $165.28. Last two stops are accessorial fees and accessorial deductions. Things like a lumper or tarping fee or a detention fee. You may not know it at this point when you first accept the load, but if you do have an additional accessorial fee that you know that you're going to have to provide at the moment, things like a tarping fee, you go ahead and select that from the list and then type in the value for it. $100 for a tarp fee. Accessorial deductions are most likely used to account for things like credit holds or non-standard deductions for quick pay from your broker. What it does is it adds a negative item onto the load's line haul charges and to the invoice automatically. If you select accessorial deduction, you can add a custom account here to keep track of it. But if you have something like a credit hold from your broker and it's 10% of the load value, you select credit hold, type in $150, and you'll see that the system actually incremented down the total invoice value. When I'm done, I hit create load. And the system will bring me to the load summary. Now, on the load summary page, you're basically just going to review the information that you've already typed in. You can email or fax out the load information if you'd like to. I recommend drafting the invoice. Even if you do have edits or changes that you're going to be making to it later, you're going to want to set this up as a draft, simply because if you do things like pay the drivers plus or minus the factoring fee, it depends on the invoice being in a draft state. My invoice numbering is set to manual, so what I really have to do here to set this up for factoring is switch this toggle in the center of the invoice from no to yes, select my factoring company from the list, and then click generate invoice. That's it. It's that easy. You don't have to type in any additional information. You don't have to put any new information in or retype anything that you typed in on the load. You can see my flat fee, per mile surcharge, tarping fee, and credit hold all carried in automatically. Scroll down to the bottom and hit generate invoice, and my invoice is saved in a draft state. Now I'll typically wait for my POD, which is my proof of delivery, or my VOL, before I go ahead and use the more button and then the email button to send this out to my broker, customer, or factoring company, or both. If you do want to use our system-generated VOL, our VOL supports electronic signatures. The way that it works is you assign it a VOL number, give it some instructions, and then click Generate VOL. Once this VOL has been generated, it functions very similarly to the invoice. You can print it, fax it, download it, or email it. But in addition, you can also send this out for electronic signature collection. You click e-sign VOL, and then you send the request to the shipper or the consignee. If you or your driver still have COVID concerns and they don't want to come in contact with anybody, or they're still socially distancing, you can use this to send the document out for signature collection so nobody actually has to come within proximity of each other to get the document signed. Last but not least, I'm going to show you the document section. If you do have a signed rate confirmation that you've received via fax or via email, download it to your computer, sign it, and then upload it here. This way, if you ever come back to this load in the future, all of your documents are in one space. This section is uncapped. If you have 100 documents to add for your load, you can add all 100 documents. We never charge you for additional storage. And as long as the document conforms to the document upload formats, which is 15 megabits or less, and in one of these accepted file types, the sky's the limit, so to speak. Once the load has been created and all your freight information has been entered and you're ready to get this moving, you're going to simply click Create New Dispatch. Go ahead and put the dispatch number here. Create a new dispatch. And then again, write once, use many. Now that I've entered in the load information, I do not have to retype anything that was related to the load, but now I need to record the information about how this freight then moves. So first stop for dispatching is you're going to click driver and equipment. On the driver and equipment tab, you'll select the driver that's actually hauling this. Let me go ahead and select my guy here, John Smith. And then the assignment works in one of two ways. If they're an employee, you're just going to assign them now. This will send the information to their mobile app and they can get moving. If they're a contractor and you don't know if they're going to be available, you can use our assign and wait for confirmation feature. What this does is this sends the driver an email and a push notification on their mobile app, and they have to confirm it. They have to confirm they'll haul the load at least 4 hours before it's set to be picked up. You can adjust this time if you would like to. And if you'd like, you can also not send them the email and simply send them the push notification on their mobile app. For this example, I'm going to use assign now. And pay attention to the tabs across the top. As soon as I assign the driver and the equipment, the rest of the tabs are now usable. I'm just going to briefly overview them, and then we can jump into the Q&A session. First is routing. The routing tab is where you're going to go to set up the full route for this trip. That's going to include things like the start location, your deadhead or your bobtail that occurred after drop-off. You simply click change route, and you can use the add start location, return to base function, or these orange pluses to go ahead and add in additional routing stops. You can use that to account for things like layovers and detentions as well. The check call system, this is going to allow you and your drivers to correspond with your customer or broker. There are a couple layers of automation in here. When a particular check call is added from one of the check call options available in your activity list, it can trigger an automatic email notification. The email notification will automatically go to the account holder, which is you, and your customer. Customer is in quotes because it's not always a customer. Sometimes it's a broker. However, when the check call is added, regardless of where it was added, meaning if it was added by an administrator or by the driver themselves, it will automatically trigger that email. If you would like to, we also have automatic check calls on the driver's mobile app. If you'd like to learn more about that, you just let me know. Trip sheet. This is where you're going to account for all of the empty and loaded miles in your account for this particular trip. If you are on a preferred or premium level account, you'll gain access to this feature, which is, again, our Pro Miles route calculation tool. You can click enter trip sheet using Pro Miles, select practical or shortest. The system will go out, use the route that you set up in your routing tab, including your start location, and give you the full empty and loaded miles broken down by state and by date for this particular trip. Expenses are where you're going to go to approve all the expenses added by the driver. These are things like fuel ups or other expenses, things like meals or lodging. As long as the driver adds the expense to the account, it will appear here for approval. You simply approve it to add it back to your chart of accounts. You can even add things in here like deductions or reimbursements. For example, adding a fuel expense as a deduction is very straightforward. You click add fuel expense, select the pay by party equal to the driver, and then simply check the box for reimburse or deduct. That will also automatically carry over to the driver's settlement. So we drafted the invoice previously. We already stopped into the expenses tab. So anything that you previously entered will automatically carry here. You can see my driver does not have a default payment arrangement, so I'll select it here. We give you per mile, percentage, manual, or per hour. If I select percentage, I can then select the percentage of what? Hauling fees plus my fuel surcharge, or plus or minus my factoring charge. Your total income less your factoring charge is your true net income. So if you pay your drivers off of your true net income, you're going to want to use this option. I'll select that now. Then I have to enter in the percentage. Let's just say I have a contract with this guy for a 90-10 split. Give him 90%, and I keep 10% as company income. The tarping fee, this I can reimburse to him if I would like to. If I don't, I simply uncheck the box and it gets it removed from the invoice. You're always going to want to save this as a draft after you create the dispatch itself. This way the driver can get a preview of his unprocessed total, which would be this amount down here at the bottom. That's going to prevent any angry phone calls from the driver saying, I don't know how much I'm getting paid for this. Why am I not getting paid for this? And so on and so forth. If you draft it, it appears on their mobile app in a draft state. Just be aware, the drivers will never see this number. This is your actual income number from your rate confirmation. They'll only see percentage of total income less the factory charge. So they'll never actually get an insight into how much the company is being paid. Last but not least is the document section. It's going to take all of the documents that you uploaded from the actual load itself, and then any additional documents that were uploaded by the driver or by you, and aggregate them in this one spot. You can download, print, email, or fax directly from the screen, or upload additional documents if you'd like to. At this point, you're typically done. You're going to let the driver use the mobile app to update you periodically using the check call system, and then when he's done, he'll mark the load as complete. Once the load has been marked as complete, you can then invoice. Using the mobile app, we estimate there's about a 30 to 50% reduction in the wait time that you need to actually get your invoice out the door, because the driver doesn't have to drive all the way back to the base and hand you the original. You can upload it via the mobile app, and you can invoice same day if you'd like to. This is where we usually break for the Q&A section. Thank you very much for joining me. If you guys do have any questions, these are our support hours. If you would like to get in touch with us, click your name in the top right-hand corner and then click Help Center. We give you a couple of different ways to get in touch with us. Our main phone number is here. We're available 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time. Just give us a call. You can use this Contact Us button to go ahead and send us an email. The Chat with Us function is located here and in the bottom left-hand corner of your TruckLogics account at all times. Simply pop that open and send us a message, and we're happy to help you there. Also, on this Help Center page are links to our training videos, which are our YouTube videos, and our How To Tuesday blog series. Every Tuesday, we put out a new blog discussing a new feature or function of TruckLogics and how to interact with it. Again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to support.